And we are live.
That's so gay.
We was
Why does everybody
kangs.
start with we was kangs, man? Why does everybody start a live stream by saying, okay, and we're live, like as if we don't know that?
Right. So, welcome everyone that is watching, both live and after we record this.
Hopefully.
Brooke, Brooke and I are doing this together for the first time, doing a live stream. Both of our channels. Basically, both of us talk about social events. We commentate on political stuff. And Brooke does a little bit more on, like, some life things too. So introduce yourself, Brooke.
Awesome. Thanks, Amos. Thanks for having me on, man. This is going to be exciting. You know, you and I like to talk a lot of garbage about what's going on politically, socially, Kakistani, and elsewhere, right? So, yeah, and I'm glad you're wearing the hat, by the way. There actually the Southern Poverty Law Center just denounced Kakistan. So I'm glad you're representing, my friend. That's very important.
Well,
But
we
for
are
those
an
who,
oppressed people.
yes, we are very much an oppressed people. You can share about that later. For those who don't know, my name is Brook Potter. I am originally from the Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago. Recently moved out to London in the UK. I've been doing a lifestyle channel on YouTube, just sharing about my experiences out here, what it's been like meeting people, trying to be the best version of myself, a little bit of political commentary, and I'm hoping with Amos's help, we'll get more into that as the months come on. So thanks again for having me, bro.
So my name is Amos Joseph, and that's Joseph is my middle name. I'm not gonna get too into my last name yet, but anyways, I am a 24-year-old guy living on my own here in Minnesota in the U.S.
Minnesota.
Minnesota, yes. Brooke and I have known each other since 2012.
Yeah.
We worked together in a group of sort of a networking group in a nonprofit a few years back, and just hit it off. We connected real well. We both talk a lot about a lot of different things: lifestyle, politics. Brooke is one of the few people that can call out my bullshit if it is bullshit, and I can call it his bullshit if it's bullshit.
Yes, very important. Bullshit calling.
We both felt we really, we're taking a new direction and sort of sharing about our views on politics. Brooke does a little bit more on the lifestyle stuff, but I've been really feeling politics is important. I used to be hardcore sort of, Republican
Communist
rhetoric, and then I went down the path of thinking maybe socialism, communism won't be too bad of a thing, and then Brooke was like, no, called me out, and I started kind of, if you want to say, I was red pilled.
You were red
So
pilled, man.
I was
Wow.
red pilled. It's pretty
How
scary
matrix of you.
stuff. So yeah, we felt this live stream, on top of just doing videos on our own, would be a good way to sort of catch a lot of these conversations we're having, because we talk every other day,
Pretty much
every day sometimes, and we realized a lot of these conversations we're having was just a good. It'd be good to share with other people. It's good content because we're sort of just the different perspectives we each offer. We realized, well, we shouldn't just keep it to ourselves. It's and with the rise of live streams on YouTube, a lot of this format is really taking off for a lot of different people. So,
sure.
yeah, the basic format we're going to be going for is just we start off, we talk about different things. We're each going to share a couple of different articles depending on the time we have. Kind of one current event / political thing, and then maybe some social commentary on things like social justice and race relations, basically the stuff that somehow matters doesn't. But some alternative media sources are sharing this, so we feel we'll want to talk about it, debunk it, call it as bullshit. So,
Yeah.
let's see. I think couple. I guess just to kind of give you guys a little preview, the articles that we'll be kind of touching on. I'll be touching on something with. So Trump went to Poland.
He went to where? Poland?
He went to Poland.
Oh, the God King went to Poland. Okay.
He did. But yeah, he went there and spoke to, sort of met the president, the first lady, which I thought was really interesting because I don't know if people know, CNN and other major news sources kind of painted this picture apparently of Trump getting denied a handshake from the first lady. You hear about this, Brooke?
I think I saw a clip on it, yeah, but I haven't read anything about it. Tell me.
So then I found a picture where she actually does shake his hand.
Right.
And that same shot, they just edited it in such a way that it made it look like she avoided him first to go shake Melania's hand. And right, I think she probably does eventually go back to shake his hand.
Oh, so maybe she went to shake Melania's hands first. I mean, I'd want to shake Melania's hand first as well. So I can't blame.
I'm thinking first lady to first lady.
Right, exactly. Protocol and such. But she did turn around and shake Trump's hand. They just left.
Yeah, there's a picture of them actually shaking hands.
Right.
I was actually looking at. So there's a Facebook page called Occupy Democrats Logic. It's basically debunks the Occupy Democrats page. Yeah. Debunks the Occupy Democrats page, and they showed a picture and said, "So you guys are all cherry picking again." And then it's a picture of Trump and Melania. I mean, Trump and the First Lady of Poland shaking hands.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll be talking about sort of what he talked about with Western civilization, his concerns for it, especially with everything going on in Europe, and how Poland is kind of standing out among a few countries dealing with the issue, and then a little bit on NATO, on how that kind of ties in with Trump's direction with NATO, and something about Serena Williams, the tennis player, and her white boyfriend, and how that's somehow how people it says boyfriend. I mean, they're together either way. Their relationship is somehow being perceived as not acceptable because of a few comments on Instagram.
Oh, because of racist?
Because of trolls on the internet. Therefore, in reality, everyone hates interracial relationships. So.
Oh yeah, I could tell you some stories, man. Coming from the Caribbean.
So, Brooke, what are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be poking fun at everything that you say. But no, the Poland thing is really interesting because even Bill Gates recently came out with some comments about European generosity and the whole migrant crisis. And that's actually something I've been wanting to talk about. But I'm in the UK where, people like Count Dankula get arrested for like Nazi pug jokes. And I'm really terrified about saying anything, too controversial before, the coppers show up at my house and drag me off. But I'm interested to hear your take on it. But I will be touching briefly on some responses I've seen on your Facebook page. Some of the comments you put out where you've been stirring controversy and people have been responding. One of which is the whole issue surrounding the minimum wage. And apparently a couple people on your Facebook page think that, you can raise the minimum wage to bring people into prosperity. And this experiment has recently been tried in Washington State, I believe in California, and possibly Nevada, who are all going for this $15 minimum wage thing. And a commission was given out, a study was commissioned, and the preliminary results of this, when it was at $13, has come in, and it's not going to make a lot of people very happy. So I'm going to touch a little bit about that and kind of address, a lot of the evidence about this minimum wage thing, and hopefully shut up a lot of these crazy people who really don't know a lot about economics. Secondly, from that, I'm going to be touching a little bit on a study that was done in Australia that's going to have the women's is very upset. It was a blind study. The women's is, yes, because vagina. We're gonna do I'm gonna talk about a study done in Australia recently, which was a blind study in hiring practices, where they removed the name and any kind of indicators about gender or anything like that. And they did this in hope that, it will bring a lot more women's into the workforce and, help promote minorities and stuff like that. The results of which is going to be an interesting conversation. And if we have time, I just got my new watch, man. It's really good. If we have time, I'm going to touch on something a little closer to home, dealing with George Clooney and his time in the UK. But not to give that away, we'll get to that if anything. So that's where I'm at.
So yeah, I'll kind of get started here. But one of the things we want to try to aim for, one of the things we want to try to go for here is I'll share my stuff, Brook will share his stuff. We'll try to keep it not under an hour. I mean, we just don't want to kind of go on, beyond like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Beyond forever. Yeah.
Beyond forever. I mean,
they do allow 8-hour streams, right? You can go on for 8 hours.
Yeah, if we really wanted to.
Yeah, because, people have 8 hours to like watch this kind of stuff, Ain't nobody got time for that.
But so I'm going to get started here with, actually, I'm going to do the Serena Williams thing. So if anyone... Yeah, we're going to talk about Serena Williams. So, see here. Right. This is the first time we're kind of trying this out with the screen share. But so Attention, or ATTN, is a news site on Facebook.
Well,
mainly.
News is,
It's an alternative media source, and they have about 4.7 million likes. So I know in the past people have kind of, when I talk about things on like Twitter or do these alternative news sites, people think, well, it's not really, it's not a reputable sources. And I go, well, of course it's not, but because of how many likes they had, because of how viral these sensational, hysterical articles go, they have influence in society. So that's why I kind of dig for these. I mean, I pretty much just went to Attention News, BuzzFeed, and AJ Plus to see what kind of nonsense they're coming up with. And this is what I found. So through
all of the ass cancer on the internet, right? I mean,
brain syphilis.
BuzzFeed, AJ. I mean, come on, man. That's like the scum class of the internet for news. But
somehow people share it, people watch it, and they think it's reputable because of, in terms of actual, like, the way they make their videos, they definitely have.
They're good for clickbait. They definitely get your attention.
They're good clickbait. They have good for. It's good business, bad news. So, anyways, it says these racist comments on Serena Williams' photo highlights how people still don't accept interracial relationships. Vague clickbait. It doesn't really address what all the article goes through. I kind of went through it. So I find out Serena Williams is on Vanity Fair because she is pregnant. Which,
Damn.
It's like, all right, great. I think it's fine. So then she's on Instagram, and she's talking about, like, she's has a picture up of her and her, I think her partner, boyfriend. I'm not sure if she's pregnant. So anyways.
She's engaged. I think it just said there she's engaged to the co-founder of Reddit.
Okay, yeah. She is engaged to the co-founder of Reddit, executive chairman Alexis Ohanian. Anyways.
Right.
So you see all these comments, obviously, on Twitter. People are like, Serena was in Beyonce's video telling you guys to be strong and leave your black king, and then went home to her white man. So, there's people are kind of going back and forth, and it's just stupid. This beginning part I don't quite really care for, but
sure.
So it says, unfortunately, a recent photo of the couple has sparked racist comments, highlighting how even in 2017, aka the current year, interracial relationships aren't always accepted. And it's like, okay, all right, where are they going for it? So it gets pretty vulgar. People start saying, that she's a cracker lover, and she's, white. And then she's talking about how these people are talking about how, like, white men are taking all the black women. She's making a big mistake. He is the founder of one of the co-founders of Reddit, but somehow he is after her money.
Right.
Because the founder of Reddit needs that.
I mean, I think
So
financially
then
she's better off though, as you know, yeah, her
yeah, but I
deals and
mean, it's
stuff.
like saying, I mean, if he was a multimillionaire and
Yeah,
she's like double that, like, I mean,
yeah,
at that point, I think it becomes irrelevant.
I would agree. If you're successful people at a certain point, the money doesn't matter. Well, who knows? Who knows, right?
But I mean, it's just stupid. So, I mean, first off, these are comments on Instagram. Do they really matter? Especially when you're someone like Serena Williams with probably a couple million followers or a few 100,000. Does it really matter at this point?
Correct.
I mean, this website is doing an article on it, so it mattered to someone, I think. Um, so then, so then it goes on and it's basically showing, well, interracial relationships. This one in particular is getting crap from she's getting crap for it on Instagram.
Sure.
So interracial relationships are more common than ever before. So one of the reporters at Attention News basically says, even with the virtual ubiquity of bigotry, the slowly rising trend of people coming together across the color line is undeniable. Sure. In 2015, 1 in 6 newlyweds were in interracial marriages, 5 times as many as they were 5 decades ago. Great. Sure. So that should mean we're all cool with it, right? More people are cool with it. Yeah, he goes, though the statistics show a rise, it doesn't mean everyone is accepting of it, because everyone has to accept it for it to be actually like not an issue anymore.
So wait. These people are basically surmising that, just because interracial marriage is on the rise, that's still not good enough unless it's like, what, 100% interracial marriage and everybody's on board with no racism. I mean,
right. Everyone has to be on board with it because being morally and socially homogenous is the ideal for this anti-racism narrative, I guess. I don't know. So then there's more pictures of her and her engaged, her fiance. So, okay. So there's a study at the University of Washington that was published in July 2016 that revealed implicit biases against interracial couples. So this is where I'm going to stop real quick. Sure. Implicit bias is basically a fancy way of saying biases that you don't even know about.
Right.
It's saying you have a bias even though you don't consciously have that awareness. It throws out any evolutionary evidence of instinct. It throws out it throws out the fact that we have this thing called an amygdala that responds to bias in ways that are out of our control, even though we have higher functions that actually govern how we make decisions. More people are having interracial relationships, but there's implicit bias that, that's more important. So it says the experiment conducted among 152 college students, basically people that are still figuring stuff out. Probably have you have your Nazi college students, you have your super liberal college students, you have your in-between, but no one really knows.
Sure.
Till you're in I mean, I don't even really know. But, here I am talking about this. These students were first asked a series of questions about relationships, including how disgusted they felt about various configurations of interracial relationships and about their own willingness to have an interracial romance. Most of them score positively in that they have had high levels of acceptance in interracial relationships and low levels of disgust. So, hey.
That's positive. That's positive stuff.
Good. That should just say, hey, racism is
on the decline. Especially in the next generation. Awesome.
Yeah. Then students were shown hundreds of engagement and wedding photos of interracial and same-race couples. The researchers asked the students to quickly. So, I mean, they're probably on like
the first thing comes to mind sort of thing.
Like just click, like you have 2 seconds to click, 1 second to click, half a second to click.
Sure.
Indicate whether each couple should be included in a future study on relationships, a task that was intended to ensure participants were socially evaluating the couples while their neural activity was recorded. Neural activity.
So they're reading the brains now.
They think they can read their minds. The couples were
police.
Yeah, the couples more quickly chosen by the students to be in future studies, the same race couples. So racism is a thing. The KKK is still going strong, and all the white people want to kill all the black people. Lead author.
The study says that? I didn't read that part.
Oh no, sorry, that's implicit bias. You don't even know.
Right.
Lead author Allison
Skinner. Patriarchy.
Yeah, noted in the study that indicates the viewing images of interracial couples evokes disgust at a neural level. So, you know.
So it's not even conscious. Like they're not acting upon this supposed neural disgust. Yeah. But somewhere in the deep recesses of like the amygdala and like the reptilian brain, there's some kind of trigger that says that they're not pleased with the combinations they see.
And this is the fallacy of this implicit bias idea, sort of the thought that because you don't know about it, therefore it is an issue.
Right,
right. You don't know you're doing it.
Right. So I'm guilty due to my subconscious.
You're guilty because your neurons have instincts that respond to. I did a video on this on otherness. So humans have always been just very we're subconsciously it determines how we respond to our environment. I mean, you and I talked about before about the whole like how we respond to a rustling bush as cavemen.
Sure.
Translates to the future as how we respond to seeing someone that we're not used to seeing. If I am in just to put it out there, if I'm in a town that is mostly white people and I see a bunch of black guys in a corner somewhere, my initial split-second response is going to be, this is not that I actually feel that way, but my implicit bias, as these people would say, would be initially my amygdala firing off in my brain saying possible danger because it's different.
Sure.
Within seconds following, I notice these guys are just hanging out, not doing anything. They're probably all looking at their phones or something. I don't know.
Right.
It is the current year.
Right.
So I am not a racist person. I just have an implicit response.
That doesn't translate from your reptilian brain to your consciousness.
Yeah, my higher brain functions that actually dictates who I am and how I think and how I'm going to actually respond does not determine that. So then
doesn't even register that, right?
I'll kind of skim through this real quick, but basically this implicit association test kind of showed that they were quickly showed pictures of, it says here, the group was shown a series of disgusting images like a dirty toilet or people throwing up.
Right.
And then they were shown images of cityscapes and nature. So then they're triggering very basic responses.
Right, disgust versus beauty to see which parts of the brains are responding.
So you're firing up those parts of the brain, and then they're like, okay, now we're going to throw
the wedding photos.
Silhouettes. Okay, so it says here, during the implicit association test, groups were tasked with categorizing photographs of same race and interracial couples in silhouettes of humans and animals. They were first instructed to press one key if the animal showed an animal silhouette or a mixed race couple, and another key if a human silhouette or a same race couple. The combinations were switched. Participants were told to hit one key if the image was an animal. So then it just goes on. I mean, it literally, and then it says they were quicker to associate interracial couples with non-human animals and same race couples with humans.
Based on the brain scans, based on what area of the brain was being triggered.
So that you're triggering a part of the brain that is more instinctively run and subconscious rather than a conscious. You're not actually like if you gave them like a piece of write it down, or you gave them more time.
I mean, even beyond that, right? Like just to break this down very simply, right? I mean, even in the male brain, when we look at if a man looks at a very attractive woman, like a sensual woman.
I was actually going to bring that up.
Okay, well, right. Well, I mean, make that point, right? That just because that is the area of the primordial, reptile brain that's being triggered, does not necessarily mean it brings to the consciousness any kind of action or even a thought that's entertained, right? I mean, I assume that's what you're going to say.
Dennis Prager does a whole video on this, talking about how
Dennis Prager? Wow, this is really controversial.
he does a whole video on this where men and women, if a man and a woman are out at a beach and then a guy sees a woman in a bikini who's very attractive, he's gonna stare for a good couple seconds because the brain is initially triggered to do that. I mean,
yeah,
that's the caveman, the reptilian brain, whatever you want to call it. That is essentially identifying a possible mate.
correct.
Now, does that mean we're actually thinking that in our higher brain functions? No.
Well, there's no way to
no.
know if you are or not.
Well, he says in most studies that have been conducted on that issue is actually hours later, the man does not even remember who he saw, what he saw. He is still in love with his wife. He is still committed to her, and nothing changed. He just responded to stimuli.
Correct.
Even
if he does entertain it in his mind, okay, so you can take it a step further. He gets the trigger. He's looking at the girl, and he does kind of, undress her with his eyes or whatever, right? As you say, once that's done, once that, okay, he's brought back to reality, he's not even going to remember, as quite rightly you say. So making the point that even if the reptilian brain sends the signal, even if you entertain the signal and you get the thought and, okay, you might have a little quick fantasy in your mind or whatever, does not necessarily translate into any kind of meaningful action. Otherwise, you really are thought policing. I mean, this is truly Orwellian in the sense that guilty by brain, right?
Guilty by evolution.
Yeah, guilt by evolution, right? So, I mean, this is just nonsense, man.
So then he basically says, Skinner, which is the guy who's kind of writing this article, his conclusion is some people are still uncomfortable with interracial relationships, or at least they're a lot less comfortable than they would appear to be. So it's about apperances, it's about implicit biases, it's how it looks. It has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with the fact that they don't take into account just humans have a lot of implicit biases and responses that are completely out of our control for the few instances after we're exposed to stimuli. See, they talk about same-race couples, and they're talking about a white man and a black woman because patriarchy and institutional racism, and they don't talk about the fact that, they don't say what breakdown was the 152 college students.
Yeah, demographics.
The demographics. I mean, how did the black students respond to white couples and black couples when they saw those pictures? They don't go deep into it, but then the way it's very manipulative. It pivots all over the place to make you think that, well, everyone's racist. We have an issue, even though the statistics show more people are actually marrying interracially.
Yeah, even though this is not racism.
This is not just, I have a black friend, therefore I'm not racist. I'm actually marrying black people. Black men marrying a white woman, white men marrying black women. They don't even talk about what about Asians, what about
Latinx,
Africans, all these people. So it says, so he basically says, unfortunately, as negative Instagram comments reveal, most don't need a study to realize people are racist. And Captain Obvious.
Hold that point, right? Now, okay. We've seen this in the skeptic community with people like Miley, what's his name? Dennis, the trans guy, girl, thing. But yeah, just because you have a sexual preference does not instigate that you're necessarily racist, right? You and I joke about this all the time, right? Because you have a preference for Caucasian women, right? And I give you shit all the time about that. It's like, oh, you fucking racist, man. Why don't you get like a black goddess, and a Nubian princess, with curves and stuff? But look, that's just your preference. That's just what you like, right? That doesn't mean that you have anything. You don't necessarily think that you're superior than another race, which is at least the textbook definition of racism. And so to say that they have to look to the reptilian brain and try to map some kind of internal signals to find some type of racism. It's the heights of nonsense.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man.
Really break down this whole article, realize that it's just a bunch of, it's under their justice. Really.
Yeah, this is attention. This is ass cancer of the internet.
We're talking about a world-class tennis player with her husband Both very successful, both very happy. I'm sure pretty happy.
That's the point. That was what I was going to say, is that who cares? Right? Like, your marriage is not some kind of status symbol to anybody else. But in this world of social media and this kind of clickbait nonsense and stuff like that, right? Yeah, there are gonna be racist dickheads and assholes and bigots out there. Sure, that's granted. But they're not keeping anybody from marrying whoever they want. Hopefully, I mean, maybe somewhere in the world that might be happening. But
that should be the issue.
Right.
If
right.
that is going on.
If that's actually going on, if there's some kind of campaign and she's lost her endorsement deals or some nonsense like that, fine, this would be an issue. But people mouthing off their opinion, of which obviously they don't care, because at least as far as we know, the marriage is going forward. The marriage doesn't concern anybody else except Serena and her husband. Right, and it's on Instagram. So I'm sure you're a public figure. You're going to invite criticism, and they can more than take that. If he's on Reddit, he's got skin of steel.
Right.
But this is it. I hate when people take these issues, these non-issues, like this marriage and this potential marriage, right? That has nothing to do with anybody else, and they try to make it a lightning rod for their social justice brain syphilis ideology. It's just garbage. And I'm not saying this isn't real, because I was actually going to bring up about, I mean, you were probably too young to remember, but back in the 90s, there was a TV show called Sister Sister. And I think it was on either Disney or Nickelodeon, one of those kind of kids channels or something like that. And it featured two black twins, and they had their own kind of afternoon sitcom. And many years later, they grew up, and I think it was Tia and Tamara. That were their names. And, they got married. One of them married a black guy, and one of them married a white guy. He was like a Fox News anchor or contributor or something like that. I wish I had the article to pull it up. And they discussed, like, one of the Tamara, who married the white guy, ended up on Oprah talking about the backlash that she received having married a white guy. And ironically, it didn't come from, the white community or even the Hispanic community. It actually came from the black community, where a lot of them, like you saw, it is, as you saw, like, some people are calling her like a cracker lover and all this other stuff for Serena.
I thought black people can't be racist.
Yeah, bro, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, man. Don't give me that, man. I was the minority where I'm from, so we could do a whole show on that. But the long and short of it is that, yeah, okay, you're gonna get stupid racist people out there, and with the anonymity of the internet, it's the Wild West. That's a granted point. But at the end of the day, using somebody, I think what's more despicable is using somebody's marriage as a lightning rod to push your particular political agenda. I think that's pretty despicable.
Yeah,
and it's garbage, man.
So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, this is, I guess, for me and Brooke, these kinds of things tend to kind of incite a little more passionate discussion, because it's just this is the stuff that's like we're actually dealing with reality. I mean, this is how some of these people, when some of these websites, they post this stuff and they think this is reality. This is what the societal norms are, that racism is still out there. And it's like, yes, unfortunately, racism is quote unquote alive and well, and it always will be.
Exactly.
It's just more but you need to look at the facts and see that society as a whole is moving forward and
correct.
Essentially, if you want to say combating racism, or it's just fading away, because more and more people are interracially involved with each other, getting married.
Yeah, I mean, you yourself are the product of an interracial marriage.
Yeah, and that was before all this social justice.
That was long before. Yeah, I mean, I am also very mixed. I mean, I look very Caucasian, but yeah, my family history is very mixed. And I mean, not so much on my dad's side, but on my mom's side. So if you have to if you have to find racism from a brain scan of the reptilian brain, I think society's doing pretty okay. And if you're going to point to people's sexual preference and try to conflate that with racism, we're doing all right. I'm just saying.
So let's move on to this a little more I don't know, relevant thing. Let's see here.
The Trumpinator.
Okay, so just as I don't know if, for people that are going to be watching this, so this is CNN politics. Now I know we know about CNN. We know that they're kind of full of crap, but fake news. I totally agree. Now this is just a very simple piece on just talking about Trump addressing the giving a speech in Poland.
Sure.
Much, I mean, except for that whole handshake nonsense. But I mean, he's talking about NATO. He's talking about Poland. The big thing. So Trump goes to, I think he's at that G20 conference or something in Hamburg, Germany. Yeah, there's a big old riot going on over there. But
yeah,
anyway, so he's says President Donald Trump delivered a battle cry to defend Western civilization on Thursday, but his political vision for the alliance in the West is one that few of the major leaders would recognize, far less embrace. So he says the fundamental question of our time is whether the West has the will to survive. He said in Warsaw, Poland, citing his host nation's long battles against tyranny as an example of the tenacity needed to preserve Western values. So he kind of talks, he's talking about this. And for those of you who don't really know, I mean, just with the whole migrant crisis going on in Europe, Brooke, you know a little bit more about, I guess, what exactly is Poland doing, I guess, that's different from everyone else?
Well, it's not just Poland. I know Hungary, Poland, and possibly the Czech Republic, maybe Latvia. But since the crisis started, I think 2015, basically when the US and Hillary Clinton's brilliant idea to dethrone Gaddafi, and Libya was the kind of the stopgap because they patrolled the Mediterranean and they kept all the ships from coming across. Since they did that, we've had this influx of economic migrants. And they're not necessarily refugees. I mean, if I'd known I was going to talk about this, I would have pulled up the article. But I think in the early years, it was like 4 out of 10 were actually from Syria. And more recently than that, it's even less than that. Some of them are coming as far away as Morocco and parts of North Africa where there isn't even any kind of conflict. But Germany's basically flung open its doors and said, everybody's welcome, and they're going to try and deal with this. And last year was almost 1.5 million migrants. Now, the migrants there's conflicting between refugees and migrants. A person has to be a refugee seeking asylum in the country that they first reach, which would technically be countries like Turkey, Italy, Greece, or any of these nations. But the fact that they reach those countries and continue on to get to Germany disqualifies them for refugee status. They are now economic migrants. So that's the legal jargon.
Right.
And then, Chancellor Merkel, our, Lord and Savior, determined to dictate to the European bloc that everybody's got to take their fair share of these migrants. This 1.5 million.
Great social experiment.
Yeah, it's like nobody has voted for this. Nobody wants this, but she's single-handedly declared that everybody's got to do their fair share.
Yeah. So
anyway,
basically, you
fast
have
forward to it. Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, and Latvia, they basically said they didn't sign on for this. They're not taking any migrants. Now, Poland agreed to it, then the administration changed, and they've now reneged to say they're not taking anybody.
The big concern, I guess, with this is, the big concern with this is basically that, because it's kind of, I'm talking a little bit on this just because it's like Western values and people kind of go, why is this such a big deal? I mean, you look at the way we have our governments, the way our values are.
Yeah.
And so what's going on is these migrants are coming into a lot of these countries and they just completely do not assimilate. You have the no-go zones over there, right, Brooke?
Yeah,
in
we
UK.
have UK. Yeah.
All the way down to UK, you have no-go zones in Germany. You have, I think even in Sweden. I was watching a whole thing on Louder with Crowder. He talked about how there's like basically what the police, the Sweden police had declared as no-go zones went from like 54 to like 61 within a certain period of time. I'd have to look it up further, but people were like questioning his sources, and he said, no, this is the Sweden police saying like they actually have 61 designated no-go zones, which has increased.
Yeah.
It's places where these migrants go to form communities, which I have no problem with people having their own communities. But when it becomes a no-go zone, when it actually becomes like a physical danger,
unpoliced, they can do whatever they want in that space. You now have two classes of laws, two classes of citizens.
Yeah, I mean, you have these regions. I mean, this takes it to a whole new level of just, it's like a takeover. So this is where Trump is making the stance and saying we have to think about whether or not Western civilization, which a big part of it is in Europe, has the will to really survive and the will to really defend itself from, this non-military takeover of migrants that are coming in and just doing what they want. I mean,
correct.
So he kind of goes in. He kind of goes into the NATO. NATO's Article 5, and I was a bit confused. I was like, "What's this Article 5?" And he talks. It's here on the NATO website.
Yeah, it's mutual defense or something.
Mutual defense. So we invoked an Article 5 for the first time in history in 9/11 when the U.S. was attacked.
Right.
So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And he goes on to talk about like basically the NATO nations putting in their fair share of help.
Yeah.
And
supporting the budget.
Obviously, like America has a very large GDP, so any amount we're giving is a lot. But then I thought, well, obviously any regular funding shouldn't count. It should be like percentage of GDP. And look,
that's what it is. It's like 2% of everybody or something like that.
The recommended amount of it is 2%. I think the U.S. is at about 3%.
And nobody else.
We're going above and beyond.
Nobody else is paying their fair share. I think maybe one other country, is it France or something?
So this is back in May, of course, right. CNN again. But it's we're looking at. Oh, here we go. Spending as a percentage of GDP.
Right. Look at that.
The U.S. has at 3.61.
Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah. The 2% target. So Canada, our gracious neighbor, who is also taking in a lot of migrants, is at half of what is the target. Stupid ads. So
look at that. Yeah, Germany's not paying. France, Turkey.
Oh, look. Germany's defense minister to Trump, no, we don't owe NATO money. Yes, you do. 1.2%. I mean,
yeah, you're falling short.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just it's ridiculous. I mean, people think Trump is just over the top and he's just ridiculous, and
he totally is.
And I think these are the real issues when it comes down to what Trump is trying to do, what Trump is actually what policies he's trying to do, what direction his administration is going. People want to go talk about he hates immigrants, he hates black people, he hates gays, and all this stuff, and they don't look at the real issues of and then you look at the real issues of what he's actually doing, like what is he doing in NATO? Why does he want these countries to pay money? Is it just because he just wants them to pay more money? No, it's because America.
It's an agreement, yeah.
Yeah, America has been this is an actual treaty, as opposed to the Paris Accords.
Correct, which was a convention.
It was just, hey, this is a kind of a cool thing to do, and all the hip countries are doing it.
Exactly. Let's aim for it. Non-binding resolution, I think, is the formal term.
Yeah, while China is literally dumping coal into the air. Because, but hey, they're in the Paris Accords. North Korea is in the Paris Accords. India is planting billions of trees in response to the Paris Accords. Great.
Yeah,
Yet,
but all the coal plants, like one a month that opens, and anyway,
right, right.
let's not get into it.
But this is the actual percentage of GDP, 3.61%. So not only are we, I think
You
I
guys
looked
are
at it.
overspending.
Yeah, the percentage that I think the actual money amount, dollar amount, I think we fund like almost a quarter of the NATO budget,
Right.
which is ridiculous. So,
Sure.
yeah, North Atlantic Alliance has its own military budget worth $1.4 billion.
Every year.
Yep. The U.S. Yeah, of the NATO, only 5 of the NATO's 28 members, the U.S., Greece, Poland, Estonia, and the UK meet the 2% target. Trump
Yeah,
also,
the UK,
yeah,
man, they're doing good.
Trump even mentions that too. He says, "Hey, Poland's doing a great job. They're actually meeting their requirement of the 2% GDP."
Yeah.
Yeah, Germany is set to spend 1.2% this year.
Yeah.
France at 1.79. Spain, let's see, Belgium, Spain, and Luxembourg all spend less than 1%. I mean, Luxembourg, well, I mean, that's
Luxembourg
already,
is tiny, man. It's like,
and they're only spending less than 1%.
that's crazy.
NATO has been long pushing for higher spending. At a summit in 2014, all members who are falling short promised to move forward. Yeah. How long has it been now? Oh, sorry, within a decade. Okay. So we're about 3 years into that, and we still have people below 1%.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I think it's great. I mean, a disclaimer before I continue talking about this, the direction Trump is going in. I am actually not a supporter of Trump, as people might want to believe. I will defend him if he's actually doing something that I think is good, I think is important. But I don't support him just because he's Trump and he's a Republican. Brooke and I consider ourselves to be libertarians, and we want to see it objectively. Like, what is he doing? I believe government should obviously be smaller and stuff like that, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I mean, he's gone there and he's saying, you guys got to do your part.
Correct.
And decide if we as the Western world are going to do something about this issue, this migrant crisis,
Yeah. He's absolutely right. Given the state of the Western nations, like the Germany, France, even the UK in a large part, it really does come down to the idea of, do you have the will to really defend your country and stand up for the values that you espouse to?
Right.
And Poland, Hungary, and these countries have huge nationalists and great patriotism in their history. I mean, Amos, you and I both know a Hungarian living in Minnesota, and he's still Hungarian. Like, he's like super Hungarian in Minnesota, right? He's holding on to that culture for dear life, right? And this is the whole thing. Like, a lot of the Western countries, they've kind of passéed on the history and passéed on their culture.
Right.
And these are the kinds of, anybody who's studied the fall of Rome, there are a lot of factors that led to the fall of Rome. But yeah, these weaker cultures do tend to be overrun by the hyper-masculinity of stronger cultures. And we're seeing that, like these, the North Africans are coming in, totally different culture. The Muslims are coming in, and it's not all immigrants. Some immigrants are trying to get away from the culture that they were from. They're coming to places like the UK and elsewhere to be part of British society or French society or whatever. But these migrants are not like that. A lot of them are actually coming for just economic benefits, and they're taking advantage of, a lot of the situations. I wish we had more time. We could get into it more, but I applaud Trump for actually, kind of praising Poland. I mean, you don't hear Poland and Hungary getting a lot of praise these days, but I think he's absolutely right. And even for myself, I was not a Trump supporter, but I couldn't stop laughing when he got elected because I saw how the mainstream media imploded. I thought it was hilarious. And yeah, what he's doing here, he's absolutely right. And he aligns himself, and I think even most Americans would align themselves with more in line with the patriotism that's seen in Hungary and Poland than this kind of Eurocentric or all European stuff that you see more on the western side of the continent, you know? So yeah,
Right,
it's
right.
interesting.
Well, that's all. I'll kind of go into that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to see the stuff that Brooke's talking about because I'm really interested in. Let's see here. So we're coming back to the regular video feed here. Now you guys can see me. Brooke's
Awesome.
going to talk about your minimum wage and.
I mean, we don't have a lot of time. I mean, we're hitting up on almost an hour. So I'll start with the back and we'll see how far that goes. So let me see if I can share.
See, we shouldn't be try to constrain too much on time though, because
I think the hour is good. So I'll try not to go too much past that. But on the subject of the immigrants and stuff like that, I'll actually do my last article first, which is this article right here. I don't know if can you see that? Yeah, that's come up.
Yep.
Yeah, this was my surprise article talking about George Clooney plans to move with his wife and his kids out of the UK because they don't feel safe.
What?
Yeah. This is so. Now the irony of this, of course, is that George Clooney actually met with the Lord Empress Angela Merkel of Germany, and he was espousing the great charity of the Europeans by letting in all these migrants and all this other kinds of stuff, and he was all praise and glory, until recently when a group of these migrants actually started setting up a little commune pretty close to where George Clooney and others like him are living.
Oh, come on. But hashtag not all Muslims, though.
You're right. And which is true. It's not all Muslims, right? But at the same time, a lot of these people, these virtue signaling celebrities, who are like, yeah, all pro, immigration, they're living in these goddamn palaces with, 10-foot, like 20-foot walls.
Walls?
Yeah, like walls, like what Trump wants to build on the southern border. And they're never going to be affected by, the rest of us who have to, interact and, we have to help assimilate and sometimes clash with some of the different cultures that we interact with.
Wow.
So it's kind of ironic now that, George Clooney is deciding to return to Los Angeles, as it says here, recently made plans to move back to LA for the safety of his family in the latest spat of terror attacks in England. As people know, we've had the Manchester incident, 2 attempts on the London Bridge outside Parliament. It's been pretty serious. But the irony, he wants to go back to, Trump's fascist, racist America. And I believe Clooney's actually been quoted as saying that Trump is a fascist or something like that. But he's actually choosing those policies, as it says here, right? He's determined to move back to LA where he feels much more secure.
I mean, the thing is I don't know if you remember, like, one of the big, like, celebrities that were laughing at Trump thing was the fact that, like, he was one of the people they said he's, like, laughing, and he's in this interview. He's like, yeah, Trump's never going to be president. And then he becomes president, and I'm sure Clooney was probably in some PSA ad somewhere that was like, we shouldn't allow him to, be president and whatever. And then, I think the big thing that Clooney should understand is terrorism is part and parcel of living in the UK. For
those who don't know, that's a job as the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Anyway, yeah.
Word for word.
Yeah.
It is part and parcel. Terrorism, literally, people dying is part and parcel, or just it's part of the everyday life of living in a big city. Like Tokyo and all these. Name a few. We can find like a list of freaking
exactly.
Yeah, countries that have just no terrorist problems because they have stricter border laws than we do.
Yeah, they haven't. I mean, the Black Pigeon Speaks and a couple of other people have done a great job of looking at the country of Japan and Tokyo, the largest city on the face of the earth. No terrorist attacks whatsoever. And on the point of what you raised about the NATO agreement, for that information, Poland, Latvia, Czech Republic, and Hungary also have had no, terrorist attacks either because they've refused to take in these vast
Right,
numbers
right.
of migrants.
I
So
lived
I
in
mean,
Taiwan, and even after like, I don't remember too much around that time, but I remember 9/11. We were in Taiwan, and that whole thing was going on, and the only violence we ever worry about is, if anything, this is the weirdest thing. My dad actually told me this. Was of all, because we were, I was born mixed. Mom was from Taiwan, dad is from here in Minnesota.
yeah,
And living over there, my dad, as well as many friends that he knew, Western, if you want to say Western friends, Americans, Canadians, Australians, anyone from the West, but some Europeans too. A lot of them, we would all get together because it's, I mean, you associate with the people that you can like closely relate to.
sure,
So
exactly.
all of them, we'll just put it this way, all the white people that we knew
Yeah,
had all had one thing that they had all encountered in Taiwan, is getting into either possible or actually getting into a physical confrontation with the locals, not by their own choice.
right.
So, I mean, is that a necessarily good thing? No. But I mean, Taiwan, as far as I know, never had any terrorist attacks while I was there. There was no threat of a terrorist attack.
Sure.
If anything, I mean, it's not like they hated, Westerners or white people, but there was definitely just if you
Tension.
want to say tension. Yeah, it happens, and it was just interesting. I mean, that's just something I guess to offer. I mean, and then of course they don't have any terrorist attacks there. I mean, it's like a second/third world country, no terrorist attacks.
Right, right. And I mean, yeah, on the point, yes, okay, fine, yes, it's not all Muslims, we get that. But yeah, the mentality of people coming from North Africa and the Middle East and stuff like that, there's a lot of tribalism, there's a lot of in-group thinking, there's a lot of these other things. I mean, yeah, I mean,
That's
you could
racist.
yeah, it is internet, right? I mean, you could get into the whole divide of Pakistan and India, the Muslims versus the Hindus. I mean, and the Hindus are the Muslims are a persecuted class in India. They are a minority. I get that. But yeah, at the same time, Western values is one of tolerance of all religions, and a lot of people coming from these areas, they're very fundamentalist. And
Yeah.
part of my concern in this whole thing is that nobody wants to address the ideology, right, which is Islam and the interpretations in the Hadith and other things. And a lot of people like you and I both know, coming from our work in the nonprofits and stuff like that, a lot of things are open to interpretation. And even if you have the most enlightened interpretation of whatever scriptures you might be looking at, the vast majority of people don't necessarily share that interpretation. And as many people out there are like, yes, yes, it's not all Muslims. Yes, I completely agree with that. But you cannot deny that there is a way to interpret the scriptures in the Quran and elsewhere that can promote people to violence. And if you're not offering some kind of counter narrative or some kind of cultural assimilation, that's all they're going to think. That's all they're going to know.
Right.
And yeah, I don't think the West, for the most part, the West has not had the courage to tackle the ideas.
Right. But I saw you were pulling up your other article there on the minimum wage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a long scientific study. I actually it's in another thing because I actually bought the thing. But yeah, the long and short of the minimum wage argument. You put out a post at some point about the minimum wage. I don't know if you remember that.
Quite a few. I mean,
yeah, I know, yeah,
a lot of things.
And I remember there was this one guy, I can't remember his name, who vehemently disagreed with what you said, and basically he believed that raising the minimum wage brings people out of poverty and improves.
Wait, is this the person we both know?
I don't think so. No, I didn't know the person. Although there is somebody that we both know that. Yeah, that's a whole video unto itself, right?
Right.
Anyway, the study, where am I? Anyway, I'll just give you the long and short of the study, right? The study was commissioned by the University of Washington to study the city of Seattle and what has the impact of the minimum wage going to $13, not even $15 yet, just the first increase in 2015 to $13 an hour.
Mhm.
And the long and short of it was they discovered, let me see if I could find the clip for that. Right. So the researchers at the University of Washington who were commissioned to find this found that when the wage went up to $13 in 2016, low wage workers saw their hours drop by 9%. And ultimately, they ended up making $125 less on average in their monthly, or I guess weekly pay. I think it was monthly pay. And they concluded that for every $1 worth of increase in wage, they were seeing $3 worth of lost employment opportunities. Now, I mean, a lot of people are criticizing this report. I think I actually have a couple of the critics. And, you know, a lot of the left-wing think tanks and stuff like that are trying to spin the idea that, you know, oh, they didn't do the proper sample, you know, they didn't look at the net positives at the higher end of the job spectrum and all these other kinds of things, not taking into account that this study was meant for the city of Seattle, meant for specifically people who are in the most affected by the minimum wage. And since that time, I think it's on its way up to what? It's up to going up to $15. I think that's what it's saying. Amos, have I lost you, man? Yeah, bro, what's happening?
The internet just kicked it. So I think
I think we're still live. Yeah, we were still live.
We are still live. So I just
Yeah.
got to make sure I'm kicking myself off.
Right, kick off the old you.
The old me. Can I do that?
It doesn't matter.
You
could just leave him there. It's all right.
Are you sure you want to eject? Yes.
There you go. Okay.
There we go. All right. Yeah. So sorry, I lost you at the part where we were.
You didn't get it. I mean, I think they're about to raise it up to $16 an hour and stuff like that. Anybody who wants to read the report, you know, we're going to put links in the description below. But yeah, the drastic rise in the minimum wage has drastically affected the lowest employment, you know, ring in Seattle.
Right,
and
right.
There's actually a lot of history behind this, and a lot of people don't actually know this. Like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, back in the Great Depression days, he came out with I think it was the Fair Wage and Labor Act of whatever. And he was one of the first people to impose this idea of a minimum wage. At that time, it was like 25 cents an hour or something like that. And that decimated the economy of American Samoa and Puerto Rico. Like, of the population that they had and stuff like that. Like, and on minorities as well. Like half a million Black people were put out of work because of the spike in minimum wage.
Wait.
In Puerto Rico, it was like 125,000 people were suddenly unemployed because of the raise, the minimum wage. And it was so bad, in fact, they had to go to Congress to give an exemption to Puerto Rico and American Samoa so that they could set their own minimum wage.
So are you saying that this liberal idea of raising the minimum wage was actually bad for minorities?
Yeah. Don't get me started on the unions, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, minimum wage, like a lot of people don't know this. Like in their parts in Europe, there is no minimum wage, right? Switzerland, Norway, etc. They don't have a minimum wage.
Right.
And the minimum wage, what it does, you have to be able to create that amount of value in order to justify being paid whatever that amount is. So in the US, they're going for $15 an hour. Mm-hmm. But if you can't produce $15 an hour worth of productivity, you're just going to remain unemployed. Now, this is for the poor, the disenfranchised, the uneducated. Sometimes it's minorities. I'm not saying all minorities are poor, disenfranchised, and uneducated. But for people who are now coming into their first job, whether they're teenagers or maybe single mothers returning to the workforce or whatever the case might be, these people may not necessarily have skills that are worth $15 an hour. And when you set that bar, they're priced out of the market. They will just not be able to get their first job. But when you
Yeah.
do away with the minimum wage and you pay people what they're worth, at least they can get the experience to go on and do better things.
Right, right. I mean, for me, I mean, I used to work in food service,
Sure.
and in Minnesota, minimum wage is at $9.50 right now. It was at $7.25, which is the federal minimum wage, about 3-4 years ago.
Right.
So it went up to 75. No,
Sure. Yeah, well, it went up. It doesn't
$3.
matter.
It went up quite a bit. I mean, it went up quite a bit in 4 years. And working in food service with the food, it was a large company, and the food prices in Minnesota were heavily.
Capped.
Yeah, well, they got changed because of this minimum wage. So it went up to $8. So then certain deals we had for our food went up,
Right.
and then it went up again. So those prices went up again.
Right.
And we had to learn to work with fewer workers, train people to work faster, and work harder. I mean, what can happen when you raise minimum wage is, of course, you lay people off because now you have to squeeze more value out of your few employees to match the cost, so you don't have to
Sure.
suffer as much in your profit margins. You have to fire people that in a more normal, more equalized sort of economy would actually be able to survive and actually make a living. Now they can't because you can't afford to pay them anymore.
Correct.
This is not because you don't appreciate these people, but because now the way you value your employees and value the labor you're getting changes. The government is essentially telling you how to value labor.
Correct.
And people can't just adjust, because it's not the employers that are adjusting their wages. It's the employees have to adjust themselves. I mean, it's use some sort of a weightlifting analogy and just start dropping 50% more weight on, because you have to do that. Now you got to start balancing how you do things. So, and then people like me, who were a general manager of the restaurant, had to now I can't make as much money because I can't meet certain goals that are being set to match
the bonuses,
to match the bonuses, to make to the changes. So, I mean, I wasn't really making bonuses anyways, but now I'm getting now my bosses are cracking down on me. So not only are the low-level, entry-level employees getting screwed, middle management, upper management, myself, and the owners, we're getting screwed too. Everyone gets screwed. The customers get screwed too, because now they have to pay higher prices, lower quality because we have to move faster, just all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So minimum wage, in reality, helps no one.
Well, I can't say it helps no one. I'm sure there's some people who keep their job and may get a little more money.
Yeah, right? but see, and we know for a fact though, and someone actually told me that this is some sort of corporate fear mongering, but the wage price spiral, is in economics is a very real thing, where if you raise wages, prices go up. So I might make a little more money in a very, very short term.
Yeah.
But as soon as the rest of my environment, the grocery
adjust
stores,
to the price,
the other food places I might eat at, they adjust their prices, the value of my money actually goes down.
Right, because the prices everywhere else goes up, and
right,
basically back where you were before.
When I was in school, in middle school, I remember actually, it wasn't the correct definition, but the way I defined inflation was exactly the wage price spiral, which was, oh yeah, people make more money, prices go up, the value of the dollar goes down. That's not how inflation always happens.
Correct. That's not inflation, but it's the same thinking of what happens.
It's the same thinking of just it's the value of your dollar going down. So artificial inflation is so much worse than regular inflation now. So
they're both terrible, and as you say, it really doesn't end up benefiting anybody in the long run. As you say, everything goes up. And we've seen it. Like a lot of people in Seattle, like they were talking about the people, like the microbreweries, especially. That was kind of like a booming industry. A lot of them have moved out to Nevada. Nevada is now considering this thing. So a lot of them might end up moving to Texas. I mean, it's people need to be able to maximize their value. And in the mind of our progressive friends, where every corporate entity is, some money hungry, greedy, big fat cat that's just hoarding all the money, they see the minimum wage as a way of equitably trying to pull some of that money towards the people. But again, not understanding how the cycle of this whole thing works. If you raise prices in one area, it trickles through the economy until the point where, it just balances out naturally. And if they got to cut people, whatever the case is, they're going to do whatever it needs to do to survive.
So would you say it's almost like trickle up economics?
Well, there's no such thing, but it's a good idea. I mean, the good news is, for those of you who care about this kind of thing, Venezuela has just raised their minimum wage to $12.50 US an hour.
Wait. Recently?
Yeah, I think like a couple of days ago. And my response to that is simply like, if you think just raising the minimum wage is going to boost whatever kind of prosperity, I invite you to move to Venezuela.
What? Dude, what? You and I both know what the heck's going on over there.
Yeah,
they're already
Venezuela's
rioting. They're already rioting. They're in anarchy. They're. I mean, people.
Well, they're not in anarchy, but yeah, they're definitely.
I mean, they want to overthrow their own government because of how screwed they are.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But again, just raising the minimum wage, like as who's the guy I like to listen to? I think it's Lawrence Reed once said, it's like, why are we sending foreign aid overseas? Why don't we just tell them to raise the minimum wage? Right. I know that's a Mises meme that's been going around. I can't remember who coined it. It may not have been Lawrence Reed. It might have been somebody else. But yeah, if you really believe that, if you really believe that that is what goes on, why are we sending money and aid to all these countries overseas? We should just tell them to raise the minimum wage. And of course, that's not how it works for anybody who's actually worked in an industry that's affected by it.
Forget building wealth. Forget any capital gains. Forget actual innovation, building industries. Just raise the minimum wage. I mean, if that were actually true, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah. I mean, we would take the Venezuelan route, right? So they don't have any of that other stuff going on, right? Complete breakdown of property rights, hyperinflation, et cetera, but they're raising the minimum wage so that, in theory, the poor would be better off.
No.
But even if the poor were better off, there's nothing to buy, right?
Well, capital flight.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a long discussion, but yeah, that's basically what's going on. Let me quickly run on to my next article here, man.
And I think we should really actually allow ourselves to maybe go a little over an hour, because we're at about an hour 10.
About an hour and 10.
So I mean, other people that we see stream, they'll go like 2-3 hours. It's like if we keep it at like hour and a half, maybe an hour 45, like really pushing it, I think we're fine. So
all right, we'll see it. We'll see how
what
it
is
goes.
this?
Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right.
So
this is something for the ladies.
So you can actually click, I think, present to everyone.
Did that not come up already?
There's it doesn't automatically do it. You got to click.
Okay, right. Okay,
there we go. Presenting to everyone. Yep, there we go.
Right. So this is something for the ladies. So this institute in Australia, in hoping to foster the cult of diversity, and the gynocentric feminism, because patriarchy and vagina and such things, they came up with this great idea that they were going to allow these recruiting. These are government jobs. Government jobs. They removed all hints to the gender of the applicant. So they took away the name, the sex, and anything that, like the name of the school, or if it was gender specific or anything like that. And all that was left was the merits of the individual. So the thinking was that this would be a way to help more women come into the field. It will help minorities, and because it's all equal, it's all a meritocracy. Women are just as equally qualified for men.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is not what ended up happening. So just very briefly here, just reading it from, in a bid to eliminate sexism, thousands of public servants have been told to pick recruits who have had all mention of their gender, ethnic background stripped from their CVs. The assumption behind the trial is that management will have hire more women when they can only consider the professionals' merits of their candidates. Right, so they went on and said, and their eventual findings. So Professor Michael Hiscox, and yes, that's actually his name, every joke has been done, a Harvard academic who oversaw the trial, said he was shocked by the result, and he urged caution. Quote, "We anticipated this would have a positive impact on diversity, making it more likely that female candidates and those from ethnic minorities are selected for the shortlist," he said. In reality, we found the opposite, that de-identifying candidates reduce the likelihood of women being selected for the shortlist. In other words, if all you do is go on meritocracy, if all you do is go on the candidate that has the best credentials, men outperform women. That's basically what this study says. So it's not the patriarchy, it's not some kind of, grand conspiracy. It is, in fact, the fact that men happen to be more qualified than women.
What? No, sorry. What field was this in again?
These are recruits for government jobs.
Government?
Yeah.
So based on merit alone, men were shown in the study to be more qualified. And then they removed the sex, right?
Yeah, they removed the sex and anything that might give a hint to the ethnicity. So all they had was the credentials. All it was the merits. And as it says here, the trial found assigning a male name to a candidate made them 3.2% less likely to get a job interview. Adding a woman's name to a CV made that candidate 2.9% more likely to get into the front door. In other words, if it was
matriarchy.
Matriarchy, exactly. So if it was just on meritocracy, right, and they couldn't tell if it was a male or women, men naturally are more qualified for the jobs, and overwhelmingly it goes for men.
Now for the viewers, Brooke, what is meritocracy?
Right. Meritocracy basically means you're qualified for whatever position, and you're rewarded basically for your efforts.
By merit.
Yeah, you're rewarded for it. Yeah, exactly. So you earn what you get, right?
I'm just stating this to clear it up.
yeah, no problem. So what we now find is that they have to put the women's name in there to go back. What they're basically suggesting is go back to the quota system. Forget this whole thing about actually being deserving of the position. No. Let's go back to quotas. Let's try and skew the hiring practice in favor of more women's by reintroducing the name and the gender, because that now serves women. Completely. I mean, if feminism and all this stuff was really about equality, they wouldn't necessarily be advocating for that. But this study in itself shows that no, it's not that women have some kind of artificial glass ceiling. It's not that women are being held back by the spookiness of the patriarchy. No, in actual fact, men are just more qualified for the positions than women. I think it's a fantastic study. If anybody wants to read it, they could get the links in the description below.
Wow.
Isn't that cool though?
Yeah, but I mean, feminists are going to lose their minds over this.
Yeah, of course they'll find all kinds of ways to debunk it and all these other things, But yeah, that's what it says. If it's just on the merits, men do better than women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think those cover my big ones. Unless you want to discuss this.
Talking about memes. Did you? I think I told you about. I didn't tell you about this.
What's that, man?
So memes. So you know how there's this. The big thing right now is CNN has responded to a meme with threatening to dox. Yeah, they've threatened to dox the individual that had created this meme. with essentially very, very not quite so subtle ways of extortion. And Rebel Media actually sent. Did you see the one Rebel Media sent a reporter out after?
I haven't seen it. No.
So they sent it out to the I forgot what his name is, like Krasinski or something. The guy that actually like put out this thing, and he doesn't answer. So they approach him outside the CNN building. He's going into a vehicle. Right. And they said, so how do you like respond to these claims of like extortion? He goes, oh, I don't think we really like threatened him in any way. And then they said, so then they go on and say, well, how do you feel? Like, how is this okay, what you're doing? And he goes, it has nothing to do with that. You need to understand who you're defending. Because apparently this guy it's Reddit. You're behind a name. This guy apparently was putting up offensive content. I haven't actually seen it, but he was more involved. The actual reporter from CNN was more into, hey, you're defending this, alt-right Nazi meme maker, shit poster,
a shit poster on Reddit, like everyone else. Okay.
Instead of actually like answering the question of like, how is it okay that you can actually Facebook? You're stalking this guy like. They have a whole team that they essentially stalked the guy, found his info. He confirmed that it is who he is. And they said, hey, we will put your info out there if you say something. So apparently 4chan reverse doxed all the people that found this guy.
I saw that, yeah.
And they're like posting, they're sending him memes. They're like, we're going to show up at your house.
Yeah.
Now, I think on the 4chan side, they're probably not really going to do anything.
You never know, although I tend to agree with
you're gonna have your weirdos. I'd be more concerned with CNN sending someone after me than I would be if 4chan had my info. That's just me.
Sure. Although I think they kind of crossed the line at that point. I think they should have basically done the same thing that CNN did to the guy and threatened, kind of hinted like, look, we have your info.
Yeah.
I think that would have been more of a kind of balancing of the scales, for want of a better word. But yeah.
So then, I don't subscribe obviously to the stuff that like someone like Alex Jones tends to put out, but I do find him to be very entertaining and hilarious. Sure. Alex Jones put out a video on his show InfoWars that basically said,
is this the money for the memes?
Yeah, $20,000 for the best Trump meme you can come up with.
I saw that.
He actually had a guy, he said, contest at Infowars.com. You're going to send in your memes. He says, we're going to show all the best memes.
Yes.
And he goes, and the best one that we think, we're going to give you $20,000. I don't know if he actually has that amount of money. I don't know if it's just some sort of publicity stunt. Either way, it takes memes into a whole different level. Now it's not just free little pictures we post on all these message boards for fun, but actually you can make money making them. So,
well, it's a perspective. It's a one-off. It is a one-off.
Oh, you never know. It's a whole. Yeah. It's a Pandora's box. It's
then you get you might get the meme Olympics, and America's Got Memes. It could really go somewhere. It's possible.
That'll be the day when we see a TV show come up on cable TV or even public TV saying, "So you think you can meme?"
Yeah. It's like exactly dancing with the memes. It's like you really think you could do this? You never know. I mean, there are channels out there that are dedicated to playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, I don't know why I didn't think of this, because I've never been much of a gamer. I like some games, but I actually used to enjoy watching my friends play. Back then it was like Nintendo 64 and stuff like that. So I actually used to enjoy that. Like, I didn't really care to play as much,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are people out there that literally watch that. So maybe there is something in people who like just want to watch a lot of memes. I mean, you're like that. You could breathe memes practically.
Yeah, memes aren't that hard to come by. You just got to know how to like word things, and you got to know what meme means what, and you just it's an interesting thing, memes. because people, I mean, it's a funny thing, but you really look at it like, psychologists, anthropologists really break them down, and like memes are a very powerful tool that just somehow came out of nowhere in the last decade or two, and I mean, now we have I mean, I thought it was interesting from a social networking perspective that Obama was so involved. He did the whole Snapchat thing. He's on Twitter and all this stuff. And then we have a president that actually posts memes.
Yeah. The next evolution is basically, a president who's actually into the internet culture and stuff like that. I think that's pretty advanced.
I mean, forget. I mean, for a second, forget the policies and everything. This guy is actually actively engaging in the internet community. He's using the internet as a part of his administration, and people think like that's very unpresidential, that's below him. And I think maybe in some ways it's like, yeah, there's a little childish factor to it, but it's generating it's generating exposure, and it's getting people to just get involved. I mean, when memers can get involved in politics,
that's huge.
It's huge. Yeah. So, okay. What was that article you were pulling up?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, we'll take a look at it quick, and because I think we got a few more minutes here before we can close up here. Let's see.
All right, let me just share this with everyone. Present to everyone.
What the heck? Explaining the alt-right deity behind their meme magic. Oh boy.
Yes. So this is the what is it? I think the Southern. Was it the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is the supposed hate group warning bunch of people?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So remember, like the milk, the OK symbol, and all that stuff is racist. Pepe, right? No, hashtag not all Pepes. But yeah, these are the guys that basically declare what is acceptable and what isn't, right? So it goes on to say here, satirical religion with a frog-head god has become the favorite new way for white nationalists to troll liberals while spreading their meme-driven strategy. Who or what is CAC? So, I mean, I'll send you the link. People who, I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can read it for yourself. But basically, they try to describe it, right? So they describe it as alt-right. They say Kek, in the alt-right telling, is the deity of the semi-ironic religion the white nationalist movement has created for itself online, partly for amusement, as well as a way to troll liberals. Sorry?
If they say partly, it's like, no, it's almost all for amusement.
I mean, this is the irony of it, right? The Kekistan thing, and, it has nothing to do with the alt-right. In fact, the likes of Richard Spencer and others detest Kekistan because it mocks the idea of identity politics, right?
The moment that Richard Spencer, for anyone who wants to go look at tweets, the moment Richard Spencer put that out there about Kekistan, his community immediately gave him a backlash. Like, why would you like this? They felt that illegitimized their claims. It makes them look stupid.
Correct.
So here we are. We're the people that are basically sort of, if you want to call more on the fence or more centrist, essentially use this as a way to troll both sides, mainly the liberals. And what's funny about this article is, by admitting that this is a way to troll self-righteous conservatives and liberals, by posting this article, proves the point that we are trolling them.
Exactly.
It's like they're trolling us, but we're going to make an article about how big of a deal it is, therefore proving the point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it goes on to say that in many ways, Keck is apotheosis of bizarre. Yeah, apotheosis. Right, again, they go back to the alt-right, all right? At once absurdly juvenile, right?
Transgressive.
Exactly. So Keck can be both a big joke to pull on liberals and a reflection on the alt-right's own self-image and serious agent of chaos in modern society. I mean, these people are fucking clueless. It's just the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I'll give you the link. Anybody who wants to read it and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I was looking at this. I was like, they start going into the origin of Kek.
Yeah. People have created a mythology. They start talking about, the Egyptian god, and how somebody actually showed up at a couple events and talked about how the Kekistanis are oppressed, and how it's basically spilled over into reality. But yeah, the fact that it showed up on this website is the greatest testament to Kekistani brilliance that I have ever seen.
Yeah, and for those of you who are wondering, this is the Kekistani flag. I actually have one over here, but this is just the hat. I just think it's. Oh, you just post that?
Yeah, I just posted it for you, so because I didn't give it to you in my original links. So if you want to check it out,
okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll be adding that little Kekistani article there in the bottom there. What is it? The Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah, the Southern Poverty Law Center has declared Kekistan, Kekistani is a hate group. You are an oppressed minority. This is like legitimate oppression.
Yeah.
Like, we've been labeled like alt-right, and, they're basically saying that we're a hate group.
You and I are apparently white nationalists, but I'm half Asian. You're as mixed as anyone.
Fucked up. Yeah, it's... Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter, man. It's just too much shit out there.
But yeah, let me take a look here. So yeah, if you guys want to connect with us, yeah, we're good. If you guys want to connect with us, we're on Twitter and Facebook. I just started up a new Facebook page. Brooks had one for a bit, but we're going to communicate with people there. Talk about these different things. If you guys find any articles, definitely could send that to us. That we'll definitely look at them, talk about. Yeah, and then we'll also find some. We're hoping to do this once a week at least.
At least once a week.
Yeah, hour and a half, hour and 40. Yeah, we're about hour and a half. A little just under that. So that's perfect. Good. Awesome. But yeah. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to both of our channels, which are also below.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And share it with your friends. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, to both of us.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we will see you guys next week.
Thanks again for watching, everyone.